Welcome to this edition of DIY3dtech.com. In this episode, I've decided to kind of show you guys how to build something, or maybe start out designing something that's bigger than the bed of your 3D printer. One of the things I need to do is actually build a fume extraction connector for one of my laser cutters. Now the issue is it needs to be about 240 millimeters long, and the bed of my biggest printer is only 200 millimeters, so that leaves me with a little bit of a dilemma. So what I'm going to do is kind of break this up into some various pieces. So I'm going to use TinkerCad to show you guys how to do this and how to go about this. If you're going to be designing something, you need to be larger in the bed. So one of the things, as I mentioned, is I need to be 240 millimeters wide. So the first thing I'm going to do is tell the new beta version of TinkerCad to go away, and then I'm going to lay out my piece first of all in full size. And so this is going to be the working size of my piece, and instead of, I like orange better than red. So now you see my piece is now bigger, far bigger than my print bed, and we'll get to that in a minute. But one of the things I want to start out with is full size, and I'll show that for a couple different reasons. So we started with this, and I just want to make sure everything is in general copacetic. So it's going to be 240 millimeters wide. Actually, I'm going to change this. I'm going to drop this down to 239 because the total opening is 240. So I want to give myself approximately a millimeter on each side. Actually, yeah, I'm going to give myself a millimeter on each side to kind of cheat with, because I may need that. So the other thing is I need to put a collection port on here, and I need this collection port to be about 48.5 millimeters by about 48.5 millimeters, because it's going to be a circle. And then I'm going to need this to be probably about 40 millimeters tall. I'll spit that out. It's early in the morning. So one of the quick things I want to do, and this is one of the reasons I want to start out at full scale, is I want to go ahead and I want to center this inside the object, and so now we're good there. And then what I'm going to do is I want to clone this, so I'm going to say duplicate, and I'm going to just bring this out here for a quick second. So I want about a 4 millimeter wall size. So I'm going to drop this down to 44.8, and then I'm going to go 44.8. Hang on a second, did I screw up here? I just want to check. Sorry, yep, I screwed up here. For some reason I'm thinking 44.8, so I want to go 44.5. I don't know what I'm thinking this morning. It's early in the morning. 44.5. I shouldn't do this with only one cup of coffee. The other thing is it's 40 tall. I'm going to make this 60 tall, and then I'm going to turn this into a hole, and then I'm going to push this back out over here, and then I'm going to again align all this just to make it all nice and neat, and say okay, and then I'm just going to drop this down so I'm making a hole through here. So all that's pretty good. Now one of the things I want to go down here and find this guy, this Taurus, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick him up to be about 50 by 50 and hide this message in the future is a good idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as a fillet in here. So as I see, I'm going to try and spit it out here. Try to join this together. Again, apologies, it's early. So I just wanted to kind of take a look at this. And again, I'm going to do it. Now, one of the things that I must not get everything in there. That I like to do is I like to align frequently, because you could say just put everything in there, but I like to kind of get things shaped up and see. So as you can kind of see, this isn't how I would like it, so I'm going to have to bump it up I'm going to go 55, and then I'm going to go 55 just to, I want more material on the outside. And again, that's why I like the safety and security. You might call it a little bit of belt and suspenders with all my aligning. And so I'm just going to adjust this, and that looks pretty good. To give me a little bit, I'm going to think I'm going to, let's take a little bit closer look. Let's bring this up a little bit more. I'm going to readjust my settings here down to 0.1 millimeter, because one of the things is that the torus is rather flattened out. Let's see if we kick up the torus size a little bit to 8. Yeah, that's a little bit nicer. I want to give it a little bit more curvature that's going to stick up, because it's going to become part of this. So I want to kind of get it down to the center. Okay, so that's going to hold that nice. And again, I've designed these before, and it's come out pretty good with this. The other thing that I want to do with this is I'm going to also duplicate this, and I'm going to bring this up, because actually I lied. I'm going to delete that. I forgot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of PVC angle pipe on here. So I was going to utilize that to be kind of ribs for the hose, but I'm not going to use a hose. I'm going to use an angle connector on it. So sorry about that. But if you were going to do that, that's what I would do, is lift these up and do about 3 of them. Downsize them by a couple millimeters so they just protrude out of here, and it provides a nice ridge for the opening. So anyways, I'm pretty much happy with this part, so let's go ahead and group all this together. And as you see, I've got a nice hole, I've got a nice opening. What I'll do is I'll take a little epoxy and paint the inside of this to make it more rigid, so the 4mm shell will be just fine. So now we have to go on and deal with the piece of the size that it overlaps the bed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this up a little bit. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually clone this. I like to do this so I keep a safe piece, and it's a rather big piece to work with, but so I don't have to go through all that if I mess it up, because there's potential I might mess it up. So I'm going to come back here, I'm going to grab another box real quick, and then what I'm going to do is I know I'm at 110, so I know that's my width, and I know my height is 5. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off about, no, this is a little bit arbitrary on my part, 25. I'm just trying to decide. I'm going to actually go 40. I think 40 works pretty good. So I want to just kind of see how this fits. And I think that looks pretty good. And then so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to grab myself a cylinder, and I'm going to make this probably, and again, these figures are a little bit arbitrary, and I'm just kind of playing it by eye. So 5. And so I want to put this something like this. Now I want to keep it a little bit over half, because I want this, let's scroll up here, and let me push the shift key so I move this, because we're going to want this area between here, and I'll show you why in a minute. So you don't want to push it all the way down like this. You probably could, but it's not going to come out as good. You're going to want it like this, and again, you'll see in a minute what I'm trying to get at. So again, I'm going to go to my favorite tool, my align tool. I am not going to align in this direction, because I want this overlap to exist like this. I just want it to be in the center of the material, and then I'm going to group this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to make a copy of this, and I'm just going to save this off to the side here. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to think about this a quick second. I'm going to want this to be more. I'm going to want this to be about 8 tall. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to also duplicate this one being 8 tall. And then what I'm going to also do is work at flipping this around by 180 degrees. Alright. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first model, and I think you see where I'm going to be going with this now. So I'm going to take this, again, go to my align tool, and then I'm going to align to the end, I'm going to align to the center, and then you see how this is. And then now I'm a little bit proud of this, so, and when I say proud of it, not ego-wise, but just standing tall of it. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to put this like this. So I split this because what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this into a hole. And as you now see, I'm now taking out that piece. And so when I do this and then I group this, what happens is it leaves that notch. Okay? And then so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this second one which I've cloned, and again it's the same size because again I've just cloned it. Now I need to move this back a little bit so I can see it. Sometimes I get the movement of this gets a little jerky. Alright, so same basic thing with this. We're going to align to the end, and then we're going to align center, and then that's good. And then what we're going to do is we're going to push this down a little bit so we take out the whole object, and then what we're going to do is turn this into a hole, and then we're going to group, and now we have the centerpiece. So what we have is this piece. Now what's going to happen is if I scroll the right way and I bring this guy in, so I have this piece, and then I duplicate it, and then I have this piece, whoops, and I turn this piece by 180 degrees, and I bring this guy in. So you see what happens here is I now have an interlocking piece which I can glue together sort of like a puzzle. Now the logic, why did I use circles? I could have used triangles instead. However, what's going to happen is I'm going to get some plastic expansion and push out both on the inside and outside of these openings, of these rounded openings. The round opening means I can take my cleanup tool and just run it around real quick, both the outside of this and the inside of this, and it'll clean it up a lot faster. At least in my opinion it will. Whereas what will happen is if I were to say use this triangle piece and then obviously flip it on its end, it's going to hit these corners, and I just always have a problem cleaning up the corners and getting a nice clean fit. I find I get a cleaner fit if I do this with a circle rather than a triangle type object. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw this piece away now because I didn't screw this up, and now I have this piece. So as you can see, I can separate these pieces off, and this is a little bit too big to fit all the pieces on the bed in different orientations, so I'm just going to have to leave them like this. And then what you can do is when you go to save these for 3D printing, so I have this one selected. Now I'm using the beta version here. I can export it, and I can say everything in the design by clicking here or the selected object. Now the one piece is to note is these are just duplicates, just mirrored. So I only really have to save one and just print it out twice. I don't have to get too fancy, but I just kind of wanted to show how all this goes, and I actually don't even have to save this other one because again they're mirror images of one another. However, I just kind of wanted to show you guys how this would go together. So hopefully you found this interesting about how you can split up a piece in your design work to fit. Now what I'm going to do is in the second part of the video I'm going to actually print this out, assemble it, and install it on the laser, and I'll show you guys in part 2 of the video how that happens. So hopefully you found this interesting. If you did, hey, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, more coming, and we'll see you in the follow-up video.
Please click like below and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date on all of our projects.